But we've gotten bamboozled and tricked in this whole society of working with dogs because we think that we need to tell them that they're a good dog and you're a good boy, but they're not in pursuit of that. So we're off right there, right? And most of the behavioral issues that we have with dogs have to do with hormones, pheromones, testosterone, not sit, stay, come, heel, down.
Today's guest is Brandon Fouché, a lifelong entrepreneur who found his calling rehabilitating aggressive canines, which emerged after being attacked by a police dog in his youth. Brandon specializes in saving what many refer to as dead dogs walking from euthanasia by placing a focus on both dogs and owners. He disabuses the misconception that dogs are either good or bad, but instead operate in their nature, craving structure over affection. Brandon explains how our fears directly influence our dog's behavior, while Canine Connections offer insights into human psychology. Having worked with Brandon personally after adopting an aggressive rescue, I've witnessed his transformative methods firsthand. Experience the Fouché Way, and you'll never see relationships with dogs or people the same way again. Let's start the show. Brandon Fouché, thank you so much for being on. Welcome.
It's very exciting to be here.
I want to dive in because as a dog rehabilitator, a 2-decade plus successful dog rehabilitator, you got into it because you got mauled. And I just want to dive right into that. And if you can share what that experience was like, and then I've got a bunch of questions about it.
Right. Yeah, I actually got involved with this when you get to a point in your life when you try to decide what it is you want to do, which direction you want to go after you've been going in one direction. So I chose something that I remembered as a child that I loved. It just so happens that I got bit during that time. But that's not actually how I got involved with this. It's just that I love dogs. Okay? I love dogs. And I went back to something that I love, but how can I become successful in it? Well, I didn't worry about that. I said, I just want to do something that I love. I want dogs because I hadn't had a dog since then.
How old were you when this happened?
Probably around 8 or 9.
Okay.
You know. And when I thought about that, I said, okay, I'm going to go back into dogs. And what is it that I was most familiar with dogs other than love was the bite. Okay. And so that's where I decided, okay, this is where it's going to be because I know there's a reason that dogs bite, right? We call this nature versus nurture, genetic behaviors versus learned behaviors. And that particular dog that bit me was a well-trained, well, I don't know if we could say well-trained, but I was in the wrong, but it was a police dog.
What happened?
Well, my father had got me a little dog. In the beginning, I had a little Cocker Spaniel. And I loved that little dog. First dog I ever had, you know. Especially for a little kid, a dog jumping up, licking you.
Sure.
It's almost like you're an adult when you have a dog because It's something you have to take care of. But I was staying with my grandfather at the time, and they didn't believe in having dogs. So they told me that my dog had ran away. They got rid of the dog. And I was devastated. But one of my friends said that we have a dog. And I said, really? I want to see the dog. So he takes me over to his house, and we go to the backyard. And I'm like, what is this thing? I had never seen a German Shepherd before, right? A big dog like that. And he said, that's a German Shepherd. And I froze, and they pushed me in the yard. And he did what he was supposed to do. He grabbed me, he shook me, he drug me around that yard. He broke his tooth off in my leg. And that's how it happened. Just kids fooling around, kids being kids. Now, the beautiful thing about it, when we talk about nature versus nurture, is that this was a trained attack dog. So what they do is they bite and they hold on and shake. But when you stop moving, that's when they stop biting. But I stopped moving after he had drugged me around. I passed out. So when I passed out, that's when he stopped. So I don't even know what happened after, you know. I just remember looking up through the trees, and I could see the sun shining through the trees, right? The light coming through. And that's all I remember.
Yeah. what was your take on dogs after that? I mean, is it fair to say that you were terrorized?
Well, I remember getting into the ambulance, and it seems like I passed out again. And then we were in the doctor's office, and I remember him talking to my auntie because she was the one who brought me. And he said he's probably will always be afraid of dogs, and you should probably get him some therapy. That's the part I remember. And
Mm-hmm.
they said, well, what's going to happen with this dog? And they said, well, I don't know. Usually they probably put the dog down. And that's what they did. They put the dog down. But that's all I really remember. They're going to put
Mm-hmm.
him down. And I felt bad because I was the one who went there, right? So I'm looking, how can I help this dog? This is what I'm thinking. And that's what happened. They put him down, and that was the end of that. And life went on.
How long were you afraid of dogs after that?
I can't say that I was really afraid of dogs because you have to remember my first experience was the love of the puppy.
Sure.
That's what connected me to dogs. And then I got bit by a dog, so I'm confused between the love and the fear, right? But the love was so great that it covered the fear. So I wasn't afraid. I just didn't seek out dogs anymore
Mm-hmm.
until I became an adult.
So did you not have a dog until you were an
Yeah,
adult?
I didn't have a dog.
When was the next time you ended up getting a dog?
That's when a part in my life when I decided that I'm going to do something different in life. I want to do something different, right? And everyone, I think, goes through that. They say, well, what is it that I love doing? You know, because they say that 75% of people hate what they do, right? So
Right.
what is it that I want to do? And I said, well, the only thing I could think of that I loved the most was that unconditional love that I have for dogs, right? So I decided that that's what it was going to be, animals. I wasn't sure how I was going to do the dog thing because, when you think of dogs, you think of dog training, sit, stay,
Sure.
and heel, right? But that was not my first connection. I hadn't gotten to that point with dogs, trying to train them yet. It was just the love. So just being natural with them, right? And I just decided that's what I was going to do. So first thing I did, I went and got a dog. Okay. And the dog that I got was Sharpei. Oh, as an adult, I must have been maybe in my 20s.
Okay.
I got a Sharpei, a wrinkled. At that time, they were very popular for the big ones with the wrinkle and the soft fur, right? Not the prickly.
Right.
And so I got one, and one led to another, and then they bred. So now I've got a pack of Sharpeis. And that was quite an experience, starting to breed now. Since it was a very popular dog, a lot of people wanted them. So I kind of got into the breeding aspect of working with dogs.
So at what point, and I want to dive into the transition
Mm,
into sort of where you were, because you were an entrepreneur
mm.
for many years as well. But for the benefit of the audience, can you just share what your rehabilitation center is like? So that way we sort of have a destination and where we're going here.
Right. Most dogs that come to me, they come for aggressive issues. Either they're aggressive to people or they're aggressive to other dogs, right?
They've been known as dead dog walking.
Dead dogs walking, right? People have, organizations have given up on them, and what are we going to do with the dogs, right?
Right.
And so in my facility, I have found that most aggressive issues have to do with the lack of socialization. Just like with people. If we can't sit down and talk about our problems,
Sure.
become aggressive also.
We're seeing that more now than ever.
Exactly. So with animals, if you can relieve the stress, you can relieve the aggression, just like with people. We can relieve the stress, we can relieve the aggression, you see. And so I found that the most important thing with working with dogs was to be able to manipulate them hormonally. Okay. The same thing with people. If we are together, it's because of how you make me feel. If we break up, it's because of how you make me feel. The same
Right.
thing makes you laugh can make you cry, right? But if you know how to push those buttons, the hormonal buttons, we call this hormonal manipulation. If we can push these buttons, then we can get what we want from the animal as well as from the person, right? So dogs, very interesting creatures. We tend to look at them as humans because we live with them, but they are different from people in that they look out, but they don't look inward. Human beings can look in and out. And this is where we get in trouble with our dogs because they are responding to the emotional feelings that they have in the environment, whatever that might be. Whereas the human being is also looking out that way, but then they reflect inward to decide what they're going to do. Dogs are more instinctive. They just react, right? And so we tend to interfere with them by rewarding them for behaviors that we think are good, but the dog is not in pursuit of being a good dog. Only the human being is in pursuit. And this is where the dog ends up coming to me because the human being rewards them for the negative as well as the positive things.
So this is what I find the Fouché way most fascinating. What I find most fascinating about it. It is counter to almost every other, and it is not dog training, to be fair, right? But I think it is an ingredient of coexisting, of cohabitating with dogs, of informing how the environment that they're going to be in with you is going to take shape. And from what I've gathered, and this is a very rude interpretation, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I've interpreted this would be akin to how a gorilla might operate in the wilderness, where the alpha gorilla will never really. Now, I guess there are chimps that demonstrate some caring among some of the males, but they really demonstrate disagreement vehemently, but they don't really, or disapproval. They start slamming things, they start yelling, but they're not really saying great job.
Right.
Is that parallel to sort of the pursuit that you have?
Yes, because aggression in nature, the aggression is the highest form of communication for animals. It may not be the best, but it's understood in the animal kingdom, right? Because they're reacting to how they feel about something rather than looking inward like a person deciding that I'm not going to do that. You understand?
And
if I ask you, why were you acting aggressively? You can reflect inward and explain to me why you were doing it, right?
Right.
Then I can help you resolve that and we can get over it. Whereas the animal, why are you acting aggressive? Because of how I feel.
Sure.
Right? And because I'm not in pursuit of being a good gorilla, I'm not in pursuit of being a good dog, right? I'm just in pursuit of being the best gorilla that I can be.
They're operating in their nature.
Exactly. It's impulse.
Yeah.
Right? Impulsive behavior. So it makes sense that they would be this way. We saw this with the big cat, Siegfried and Freud, right? I mean, he got bit, he fell. The animal instinctively did what tigers do. We can't say bad tiger. They just, or a tiger, you see?
Right.
So human beings, we have this love affair with our animals, thinking that somehow we have this special animal, right? And all we need to do is give them love, which is this unconditional love that we give them. But interestingly, the animal is not in pursuit of that kind of love. Only the human being is in pursuit of that kind of. It's not that they don't accept it because you're doting on them. So they will show you that they like it, but they will use it to climb, to become the leader of your human pack, because that's what they're in pursuit of, hierarchy. And once they get the hierarchy, then we could say that's love. And that's what the movies were about, The Lion King and what have you. That's what it was about. It wasn't until he became what his father was, the alpha of the Serengeti, and he held his baby out, and the Serengeti bowed to his baby. That's power. That's what they love. So they need the leadership, and they do not believe in equality. If animals believed in equality, a pack could never exist. There'd be no need for leadership.
Yeah.
The ecosystem would be totally different. In fact, when they took the wolf off the land, it began to change. They have documentaries about this, where even the river began to run differently because the beavers cut in a different direction.
Sure.
Animals that were not producing in the beginning are now producing over and above what they should be. But when the wolf came back, right, the
Sure.
beavers cut a different way, and those animals that were overproducing were no longer overproducing, and the wolf brought back the balance.
So I do want to talk about wolves, by the way, because I know that you've had some experience working with wolves and horses, because I think that's very interesting and I know very little about. And we'll get into this, but I remember being in your office and seeing the Barry Lopez of Wolves and Men book, which had a profound effect on sort of how I view general companionships, cooperation among humans. I think there's something to be taken about that. So before we get into that, I'm curious if you could just highlight, for the benefit of the audience, maybe in an example of how you implement some of the strategies you're referring to relative to sort of negative corrective behavior rather than positive reinforcement.
Okay. Look, I tell my clients, this is the formula. We tell our dogs what we don't like only. What we like, we say nothing, unless we're in the game room. Now, the game room to me represents training. Training is supposed to be fun. The reason I train my dog is to have fun, not control. That's where we get mixed up, right? That's not the control. That should be fun. Roll over, play dead, bang, bang, give daddy a kiss, give mommy a hug, right? I love you, and all the baby talk and everything revolves around training. You can be silly. That's the purpose of having the dog. But tell the dog what you don't like only. Now, that's not something that I made up. That's something that I was able to view by watching nature, because I've had so many animals, right? In nature, they say what they don't like. They do not reward for good behavior. That's a human quality, you see?
Yep.
So if we tell our dogs what we don't like, all the things that we don't like, then that means we're going to get what we like. And when the dog is doing what we like, say nothing, because that's the way it's supposed to be. You see? That's the formula. But we've gotten bamboozled and tricked in this whole society of working with dogs, because we think that we need to tell them that they're a good dog and you're a good boy, but they're not in pursuit of that. So we're off right there, right? And most of the behavioral issues that we have with dog have to do with hormones, pheromones, testosterone, not sit, stay, come, heel, down. Because I never met a dog actually that didn't know how to sit or didn't know how to down. There's a dog right now sitting and lying down, right? So we don't need to focus on teaching them how to do that. But I get it. That's $1 billion industry, right? And it works for pets. If you just want to love a dog, then have fun and train them. But for control, we have to look back at nature. Nature knew how to raise its creatures. And we can't look at a lion or a tiger or a monkey or whatever and say, that's a bad mom for what she did.
Right.
We can't pass judgment based on that, because they're doing what nature's telling them to do. And they can have babies without us and without help from anybody else. And the human being, we need help just to have a baby.
Yeah.
Right? And once the baby is there, we have to take care of them. In nature, they jump up and start running within a very short period of time, right? So I get why we think like that, but we're doing the animal a disservice because when we look into our dog's eyes, that's our reflection looking back at us. But that is not what the animal is thinking.
Well, on that note, you had written, I help people overcome their insecurities by teaching them how to understand and connect with complex personalities of dogs. Mm-hmm. Through this process, they build confidence, patience, and trust, both with dogs and within themselves. I want to give you an opportunity to sort of expand on that because I think there's a lot of depth in it.
Yeah, look, most of the aggressive issues that we're having with dogs have to do with the human's fear, not the animal's fear.
Fear of what?
Well, the fear, this is human beings, we fear our memory and our imagination. Mm-hmm. What happened in the past and what could happen
in the future.
Today, right?
Sure.
So we're not living in the moment like the animal. The animal is living in the moment. I've seen animals bite people and then 5 minutes later they're licking them because they're living in the moment, right?
Right.
The problem is the human being won't allow the dog to live in the moment. So they keep reminding them of the past, and that's why they keep having the same problem. Because we think it's the dog that's having the problem when it's really us.
Yeah.
So it's our fear that we imprint on the dog. So he can't forget it. He has to keep repeating the same thing that we don't like. So every time you see that dog on the leash and you grab the leash and pull back, he starts to look around for the dog because we keep reminding him. So we won't let him live in the moment. But when the human being becomes blessed enough to understand what I'm talking about, and now they're living in the moment, and I think everybody will agree that we are our best when we are living in the moment.
Sure.
When we're in that moment, then we're one with our dogs. And that's what I try to teach people by telling them, look, this is nature, and this is what the human being is. Your job is to be trained how to think like a dog, but not to train the dog how to think like a person. You see? So the more we are trained to understand nature, the better dogs we can get.
So in full disclosure to the audience, I have sought Brandon's assistance on a dog that we had. And I want to say, I think the most poignant thing is exactly that, which was meeting the dog where he was. He was an aggressive dog. He was a rescue. And there are two very standout takeaways that I had from that experience. One, no training mechanism had resulted in a quicker change in behavior.
Right.
And number two, by meeting the dog where he was at, I never felt more connected to almost anyone else in my life.
It's unconditional love.
So it's an amazing thing. And I don't know how to, I'm wondering if you have better words than I do, because you have so many that you're taking care of and that you're so intuitively in touch with. Never mind, I'm sure you have personal dogs, but the dog was always checking with me, and I could almost sense he was going to do something before he did it.
Right.
And when he did it, he would look at me. So because he was checking in repeatedly, and we sort of knew exactly, we knew each other. We knew where he were. If I moved in another room, if I did something outside, he sort of somehow would sense it. And it is that when people would see it. And so for the benefit of the audience, for example, we had crumpled up New Yorker magazines and newspapers at every corner of the room. We never touched the dog, to be clear. Never touched the dog. But if he started to do something that we didn't want him to do, we'd slam the wall with the paper. We'd slam our thigh or something to create a sound. And that sound was jarring enough to snap him from what he was doing. I wouldn't say a word. I'd look at him, and then he would just back off. And that was an aggressive thing for people to see, and I think they were thrown off by it. But the results were astounding in how quickly they were translated and how effective they were.
I want to explain something there because that's where a lot of people get confused. First of all, I want people to understand that there are two fears that human beings and animals are born with, and absolutely every other fear in life is learned. There's only two, and that's the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Everything else we have to experience to know this, right? So, and by the way, that's why the 4th of July, we lose a lot of dogs because of loud noises.
Mm-hmm.
So, animals were designed that way. That's the way nature designed us, human beings. We're an animal too, and it's going back to nature and looking at it for what it really is, because truly nature is a serial killer.
Sure.
It really is, when you look at it. Some of the most beautiful flowers are the most poisonous ones. So we just have to see things for what they really are, right? We've been trying to connect to the dog through his neck, prong collars, shock collars, choke chains. Anything around the dog's neck is an attack. You must understand that. That's an attack. When animals face each other, that's when they fight. Okay? Disciplines come from the rear. When you watch your animal, or even a wild animal, when they eat, they drop their tail. They drop their tail so that they can see behind them and feel behind them a predator coming. So when we talk about hormones, pheromones, testosterone, and we're talking about manipulating hormones, there is a hormone within the rear of the animal that is different than the hormone in the front of the animal. And when you see two dogs meet and they start to interact and smell, they will go to the rear in those areas, all around up into the front, the ear, and then the face. That is a very calculated process that nature has placed in them that they don't have to learn. It's just there. The reason that they mess up is because the human being won't allow for them to do what nature told them to do because of our fear again. You see? No. I've heard people say, no, don't smell him like that. That's rude. It's an animal.
Right.
Right? So we have to be taught how to understand the animal the way nature created it. And then take what we understand and use it with the animal. And that's how we get success. That is the Fouché way. The training was not designed for control. In fact, the concept of training when we have a behavioral problem, it's like if I were a doctor and you were having a problem with your head, but I was operating on your foot. That's training. Right. When we're dealing with behavioral issues. Because the concept of training and toys and what have you, and I know I'm going to get some feedback on this, but that's all right. That's what it is. When we use toys, we must understand that we are raising the prey drive of our dog. It is not happiness. If I ask you, why are you throwing the ball? You're going to give me reasons like exercise and fun and all the things that you're going to go inward to explain to me. But if I pull your dog aside and say, why do you think your owner is throwing the ball? He will not say what you're saying. He will say to raise my prey drive. Right. It's a hormone that you're tapping into. But no animal chases an inanimate object but a stupid dog and cat who have been imprinted on to do that.
Sure.
So what we're doing is he's chasing an inanimate object with no nutritional value. We're just making him neurotic.
Right. There's two themes that seem to intertwine with both of these. One is that we're personifying the dog,
sure,
making them more people-like. And number two, we're operating out of an ego world where they're operating out of an id world, where they are 100% in their nature and being present. And so I guess my question is, insecurities, I want to go back to the statement that you made about insecurities, because there really are the basis of fear in humans or stress is related to the future or to the past. You're not having stress when you're being present because you're just evaluating the current state. So what insecurities do you think, like what have you seen from your clients exhibited that form some of these behaviors besides negative training behaviors or counterproductive training mechanisms? What do you see more common among those owners that they're missing?
First of all, let me say, and I've said this many times, if I could thank my dogs 1,000 times a day, it will never
Sure.
be enough for what I have learned from them. Okay. So, uh, people, as I said, we suffer our memory and our imagination. We can't help that. That's who we are. Our job is to be trained to understand that that's what we do, right? That's what we do. You can't stop the mind from being like that. But the more that you understand that that's the way your mind works, the more in the present you become. You see?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. We believe that because the dog is doing something that we don't like, that it's his fault. Yet we're the leaders.
Right.
So how can we blame them for something that we're not doing? You see? So most people are not looking at life laid out like a puzzle, putting the pieces together. You know, they think that it's just supposed to happen because you're there. We all have this energy, this power, this ability to be this and that, but it's those who have been able to lay the puzzle out, right? And start putting the pieces together that are successful. There's a thing I've heard before. It says, we're all self-made, but only the successful ones will admit it. So, do you understand what I'm saying? We're all self-made, but only the successful ones will admit that I'm a self-made man.
Meaning specifically what? That they
Well,
didn't get any help?
whatever the case may be, we can blame it on whatever. I didn't grow up with a mom, or I didn't grow up with a dad, or I didn't get a grant, or I didn't,
Sure.
whatever that case may be, right? We're self-made. That's who you are. So if
Right.
you didn't get it, this is who you become. But the only ones that are bragging about it are the ones who became successful.
Right.
You see? So I believe that we all get what we want. At some point, we get what we want. No one here doesn't get what they want.
Yes.
Now, what did you do with what you got? Right? Did you
Right.
take this problem? I'll use me as an example because my grandmother says you should always use yourself as an example. When I got bit by this dog, I remember how I felt. I remember how it felt when he bit me and drugged me, and I remember the pain. I remember that, right? But what did I end up doing? I took that pain and went directly into the business of working with animals or dogs that did the same thing to me, right? So I trained myself to understand why that happened. But if you don't want to hear it, you can say, oh, no, I don't want to hear it. Don't talk to me. Then you're lost.
Yes.
Yes. What do I got to do? You got to put one foot in front of the other every day when you're tired and when you're not tired and when you don't want to do it and when you do want to do it, one step at a time every day, 7 days a week.
So let's dig into this. This is fascinating because so what? First of all, what happened to you? What was the flame that got lit that said, I'm gonna focus on this and I am going to find a solution? What was that drive? How did you overcome it? What were the steps you took? Is that something that just came in inside, or is that something you think you can replicate or teach your younger self?
Well, it came inside of me. One day someone said something that for whatever reason, it shocked me and it hit me. They said, all dogs love me. That's what I thought till I was bit,
Right.
right? So
Everybody thinks that.
that woke me up.
Sure.
I said, no, that's not true, right? That's not true. So I went in search, and this is what I found that there are genetic behaviors and learned behaviors. And this dog was taught to bite me. So I started thinking, well, what else is happening with people who own dogs that are producing the same thing, but they don't know what they're doing or that
Right.
it is producing it. And that's when I went down to investigate the toys and what type of toys. And what I found was the toys were designed for working dogs. So let's say I'm a hunter and I use my dog to hunt. Hunting season's over now, but I don't want him to lose that drive. So I go home and I start throwing the ball and the frisbee, and you see people throwing the stick for the lab in the water, and he's retrieving it. Well, really, that's a bird. That's mimicking the bird. So when we go hunting, you're going to be on your game now. But when we throw these inanimate objects, we can make this dog so neurotic that when we go back to hunting, he's right on point.
Sure.
Okay, so this product got trickled down to the lay person, where we start buying these things for our dog, not knowing that we're taking a pet and turning him into a working dog by talking to a very specific hormone that produces prey-driven activity. So now we've got this dog that's chasing after little kids or snipping at people from the back or nipping your hand because you're playing tug of war. We could just go down the rabbit hole with this thing, right? And then we turn around and say, well, he's a bad dog. It's like a potter who makes a pot and then curses the pot.
Right.
You break the pot.
Yeah.
And so my job is to teach people, to educate people that what is it that you want? Do you want a pet or do you want a working dog?
Sure.
Right? Because they're different dogs. I used to work with people that were blind and seeing eye dog. My opinion, best dog in the world. Why? Because every door is open to that dog in person. Every single door, right? So that dog's job is to take you from point A to point Z. Bypass the rabbit, bypass the squirrel, bypass the bird, bypass the dog, bypass the cat, right? And what does that person do with that dog? Love them. They can't live without them. So they're constantly hugging and kissing and loving. And that's why you get a dog. So I used to interview people. Why do you want a dog? They have these fantastic stories about saving lives and love and blah. And then they go home and they produce the opposite thing. They never once said that that's what they wanted to do because they've been misinformed. This is not what they want, but they think that this is what they should be doing. But that's making a working dog.
Right.
You see it in every facet of working dogs, the police dogs, the bomb sniffing dogs, the drug sniffing dogs. They throw the ball afterwards, he catches it, and we go through this whole routine. And then pretty soon they have to retire him because the neurosis of that drains him so much, he's no good anymore.
Yeah.
We just wear him out.
Well, how much of this do you think is just a result of their natural state being in the wilderness, coming from wolves, being inserted into an urban environment?
Right.
Are those reconcilable? I mean, is that a reconcilable issue?
Yeah, look, man has spent many eons of time bringing the dog out of the wolf, right? That's how we did it. Dogs are really wolves in dogs' clothing. The more that we can water them down and, genetically and make them more and more subordinate, we can get the dog, okay? So man spends all that time bringing the dog out of the wolf, and then the human being gets the dog, spends the rest of their life bringing the wolf out of the dog. Because we don't understand the process.
Right.
And what it was for. And because it's not a good thing to go to breeders now, we go to the shelters and what have you. But the shelter is filled with backyard bred dogs, right? So we're getting these dogs that, whereas the breeder was breeding for specific characteristics, right? The breeder says, okay, this is going to be a working dog, this is going to be a pet, blah, 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 blah. He could tell you that. But now we're going to pick dogs based on the cosmetic makeup of the dog, right? So I like that one because he has a blue eye and whatever that might be. But then we get them home and we treat that dog as a subordinate dog, but maybe it's not a subordinate dog. Mm-hmm. Every litter has these terms, and I know these terms are controversial, but I'm going to use them for the sake of people listening. Alpha, beta, subordinate, and omegas, right? So we got these, I call them personalities. We have different, each one of those has a different personality, right? This one more so than the other, if he's an alpha. So we have these different personalities, and we bring him home, and we take an alpha. Let's say we get an alpha from the shelter, but we raise him like he's a subordinate, which actually feeds the assertive dominant behavior that's in the dogs, because there's no restraints there. There's no catalytic converter holding them down. Everything we do is to build them up. Mm-hmm. So now he believes, or she believes, that she's the leader of this human pack. And we do everything our dog tells us to do. We take commands from our dogs. As simple as your dog comes to you, puts his snout under your hand and lifts it, and you rub him, and you say, oh, he's so smart. He wants love. No, he's telling you what to do.
So how do you deal with, theoretically in your own home, you need to be the alpha in order to maintain some form of order. How do you manage that with an alpha dog?
Okay. First of all, the way we manage it, we have to understand that being an alpha is more a strength of personality than brute force. So a lot of people think if I say, oh, an alpha, that you have to be aggressive with your dog. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Yeah.
It's the strength of your personality. It's your aura, right? It's how you enter the room. This is what the dog is looking for. When you see two dogs and a dog appears, he's looking at the body language of that other dog.
Right.
Is he carrying the tail up high? Is the tail down low? Is he acting subordinate? Is he acting aggressive? There's different positions, body positions, that sends the message to the other dog. That's why you can be walking down the street and a person will say, he doesn't mind when he sees this dog, but when he sees that dog, he loses it. Yeah,
right.
Because of his body language. He's throwing off shade. Humans can walk down the street like that too, right? We say, well,
sure.
So that's what's happening. But we haven't been taught to look at it that way. We haven't been taught to think about it that way. So we have no clue what the deal is. You see? So an alpha, getting back to what you said, how do we become an alpha? By leading them in the right direction, by telling them what we don't like. See, animals are looking for two things. They're looking for the danger first. That's why they're sniffing and they break out of the yard.
Right.
They're looking for danger first, and then safety. But they cannot, I'm going to say this again, they cannot seek safety without the danger first. So we have to provide it for them. It's like a control environment.
Yeah.
I produce the danger for them so that they seek safety. Animals that live on the Serengeti see their world as a predator. They see themselves as prey. So today, an animal woke up on the Serengeti, scanned the horizon, and saw danger. It went that way. It's not going to danger. Our dogs wake up today in our home, and they see danger, they run to the danger. Right. They see their world outside your door as prey. They are the predators, and you're holding them back. That's how they see their world. And the closest thing to the Serengeti is when we see a street dog. You can be walking your dog down the street, and a dog that lives in the street will be coming in the same direction and cross the street. They will not engage with you. They will not fence fight with another dog behind their territory. They see their world as a predator. They see themselves as prey. So you can't take it out of them. We take a dog out of our home and we dump them into the street, which I call the Serengeti, and they behave just like the wild animals on the Serengeti. They don't want problems. You come outside, a dog is on your lawn, and you say, hey, come here, boy. He runs across the street. Do you understand? Because
But
it's there. It's a genetic code that's locked up inside the dog that no one is teaching people how to understand. And I can't believe that the scientists and the professionals don't know this, but they're not telling people because I believe it's $1 billion industry,
right.
which is okay. I'm okay for them making the money, but if we can say these are toys for pets and these are toys for working dogs,
Right.
just tell the people and let them make a choice. I'm offering them a choice. You see, training is a choice. You have a choice to train, but most people don't know why they're training. They're training to get control, and it should never be the control. It should be fun.
I want to move to people.
Sure.
But before I do, I got one quick question. Do you have any take on breeds? Do you think certain breeds have behavioral traits that are immutable or somehow irreconcilable with living in a home?
Mm-hmm. Well, first is an animal, and then it's the type of animal, which is a dog. And then it's the type of dog that it is, and then what the dog was bred for, and then the dog's name. That's how we kind of look at the situation, right? So we've got dogs that have strong personalities, just like some people have strong personalities, right? I've got some friends that I would consider to be sociopaths, maybe. I know how to talk to them, right? So we're still cool. But I said, oh, there you go with the sociopathic bull that you're doing. I call them on their shit. Right? So we've got these dogs that have these strong personalities, the ability to climb, right? All we have to do is submit to them, just like my friend I'm just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you say, oh, you're wonderful and you're a nice guy and you did all, he's going to take over. He's going to take over. Okay? Why? Because he wants to? No, that's his personality. He's going to come in, he's going to lead the room, he's going to tell everybody what to do because everybody told him that he was the man, right? So now we've got this dog that's got this same kind of personality that we're sucking up to, right? Just doting on them, just making them feel assertive,
right?
Assertive, dominant, and ultimately aggressive. He has to become aggressive because you're doing all these things and then you turn around and say, no, go to your bed. Then he says, okay, now I got to up the ante.
Right.
You've been telling me all along I'm the alpha by your behavior. Now I'm going to raise it. I'm going to growl at you. Or I'm going to snap. And when he does that, the person says, oh, he shows the fear. Now the doctor says, I got you. I know who you are. You understand?
I was once told having a dog was a good training ground for having a child, and I don't think that was wrong, to be honest, because there's some similarities in behavior. So how has this changed? How has this informed how you are with people? I cannot help but think you read people better than you used to, and probably better than the average person.
Yeah, because it's interesting that you said that. I'm glad you said that because I can't help the dog if I don't know how to read the person.
Sure.
Because, or let me say it this way, the person can't be successful with their dog. I may be successful with the dog, but they won't be successful with their dog because I'm not able to reach them. I'm not able to give them this information where they're like, yeah, you're right. Wow, yes. And when I'm able to do that, I get calls like this. Hey, Brandon, this is, let's just say, Clarice. Hello, Clarice. How you doing? Fine. I just wanted to let you know something. What's that? Do you know, I think my dog is happier than he's ever been. And I paused for a moment. I said, do you say that again? She said, I think he's happier than he's ever been. And I said, do you ever think that you would say that to me? Because I remember her coming in, right? And she says, no, but I really think he's happy. And I said, well, why do you think he's happy? Same reason you said. He's looking up at me now. He's paying attention to me before he does something, or he thinks about doing something and he looks at me.
Totally.
Just the same thing that you were saying. You feel that connection, right? You feel that connection.
Absolutely.
And until you feel that connection, you're just you don't have the unconditional love that we talk about. But when what you're talking about, that's that unconditional love, right? When you see that love, when I felt that love for the first time and I saw that, I could never go backwards again.
Yeah.
I've seen some people get involved with this, they get a little taste, and then I look at them again, they're back to the old ways again, because that's what they remember, because they had to challenge themselves. And they couldn't challenge themselves because they didn't want to admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
That it was them. And this is how it is in life. I don't care what business you're in. If you can laugh at yourself, right? And you can say, you know what? I fucked up. Not he made me. He did this. And I've been there a lot where I could have pointed my finger to someone else as to the reason why my thing didn't work. And I would have been right, but I'm wrong at the same time. No, I let that happen. I saw that happening and I didn't get on it like an alpha. So I'm telling everybody, you better be an alpha in this world because that works. That works.
How do you apply that in your life?
Well, you know,
outside of the dog world.
Okay, fear. Fear to me is a good thing.
Sure.
Because fear is
if used right, if it's harnessed correctly, right?
Well, yeah, if I'm afraid of something, I say, because I'm afraid, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. This is my back door. It's like on a computer. This is the back door where you can get in. If this happens, I'm going to do that. If that happens, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway, because I've already decided that what I'm going to do when it happens. You see? But if you just look at fear, it's like aggression. If you just look at aggression as just one big ball, oh, this is aggression. Oh, that's the boogeyman. I'm scared. No, if you understand, there's many forms of aggression. There's many layers to aggression, right? Just like there's many layers to the fear that you may be having. You may fear something worse than something else, right? So if you can take the one that you feel the less fear of, but nevertheless you are afraid, and overcome that over and over again. See, that's how I did it when I'm working with packs of dogs, 20, 30, 40 dogs at a time, because I've done it so many times with one dog and one dog and one dog, right? That I come very good at it. My personality, the strength of my personality can radiate out to the dogs. And that's what they look at. So when I walk out into the pack, and I've had this happen before, when I had a bad day or I wasn't feeling quite off,
right?
The knuckleheads start acting up. They say, oh, the alpha's not on his game. They see it and turn around and look at that guy they got beef with. Just like that. Oh, you're off? It's time. And I'm going to tell you why. In nature, when the alpha becomes long in the tooth and old, there's always that one in the back waiting to take that position.
Oh, yeah.
And it's brutal. But that's the way nature made it, baby, right? So when I come out, I'm on my game. I know it. Put my face on. Okay, I'm going back to these powerful guys. And I got to be on my game. And when I walk out, I see they look at you in your eye. Every one of those dogs look right at you in your eye. And they see that spark. And they say, we're all good today.
The training, the conventional training we all read about, the Best in Show just got awarded, I think last week, which is sort of insignificant.
Right.
But that's where everybody goes to when they think of training. And training to me is a diet. The Fouché Way seems more like a lifestyle because you can never really lay out. I mean, you can't lay up on it. It's not something that you can, that is something you have to execute and practice and be in a lot of ways.
That's it. I'm glad you said that. I'm not teaching people what to do, but I'm teaching you how to be.
I'm going to shift subjects quickly because I know we're starting to come up on time a little bit, but I'm very curious. What is your experience working with wolves and horses? You know, what takeaways and how does that apply to your understanding of humans and our species?
Wow. You should have started with this.
I wish I had now.
Look, first of all, dogs, the wolf's brain's like 25% bigger than dogs. I mean, it's just how they figure things out, man. I mean, we think our dogs are human, but those guys, that's why man had so many problems with the wolf.
Well, in what capacity were you working with wolves, just for context?
Up close and personal. I mean, just like a dog.
How do you find your way into this? Was this
Well, my first wolf was actually sent to me by animal control out of state. They found this wolf in a barn killing chickens. Okay.
And so they sent it to your rehabilitation center.
Right. Well, actually, they sent it to a rescue first. And then the rescue said, hey, we got this dog we can't control.
Right.
It's a husky.
Okay.
It's a husky. That's what they said.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was on the paperwork. And then it came, and I'm like, what?
That ain't no husky.
I read all about it. I watched so many wolf. I knew that's what it was, right? Everything about the things that they didn't understand about it showed me that it was wolf. And I've had this happen many a times, you know. Oh, we thought this was a little German Shepherd or whatever, and it comes to me. The doctor wants to put him to sleep because he says there's something neurologically wrong with him. Could you take a look at this video? And I'm like so busy. I said, could you please look at the video and tell us what you think? So I look at the video. I'm like, what? Oh, that's why he's off. He thinks he's got some neurological problem. I said, why do you think he has he doesn't pay attention to anybody. Like, if you today, you come back tomorrow, he act like it's not you again. I said, that's a wolf. So they come in different ways to me, right? But I have found that you truly cannot appreciate a dog until you understand wolf. Because
Tell me more.
The wolf is perfect in every dimension. It is an anomaly. It's got the right height. It has the legs, the gait, the ears.
For what specifically? Perfect for
anything. You know, wolves can climb 12, 13 feet up and over, under, around, outthink. Look, you can go back in history and talk to the farmers to say, we tried everything to outsmart this guy. Why is the wolf so successful? Because he looks for danger first.
Right.
He comes up to something that you might have put out. He said, what is this? What is this? It wasn't here yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, he smells this way, around it, right? He may even take something in his mouth and throw it on that thing. If it pops, he'll never do it again. They know. They're always trying to outthink because they're looking for danger first, and then once they see danger, they go to safety.
Well, in that book that I read, I remember the alphas can shift from different time periods. If they're on a hunt, there might be one that sort of takes over as an alpha, and in other times another might take over and is alpha.
Okay. Let me explain that. Again, like I said, this terms alpha, beta, subordinate, omega, or O, the scientists say we should have never done that, but for the sake of talking, people understand. Okay. When wolves play, or when dogs play, puppies, when you get a bunch of puppies and they're playing, they're always squabbling with each other. And when they play, that's why it's so important. Play for each dog is very specific to that dog. So this dog may like to grab the ear, where his brother grabs the hop, the back leg.
Yeah.
His sister grabs the neck. And they're always grabbing the neck, and he's always grabbing the ear, and he's always grabbing the leg. Okay, now, we're very good at our skills now. We got skills. So we go out hunting. You do your neck thing, I do my ear thing, you do your leg thing. We bring down game.
Yeah.
And that's the shifting.
I got it. What about horses? What's your experience there?
Creatures. Oh my gosh. Horses. You know, I used to ride with wolves and horses together. People couldn't believe it. The predator and prey, I laid them down together, right? I couldn't believe it.
How did that happen?
Well, I used to have, horses and wolves way back, and I used to just raise them along with them, Look, a wolf is going to kill something because he's hungry.
Right.
Everybody in nature, all the animals, the rodents or whatever in your yard, they're just looking for a meal. They just want to eat something, right? But they want to live. So if they got food and you do the correct introduction during the time period, the growth time period, you can put an animal with anything. See,
Right.
that was nature's way of separating the species. If we took a wolf pup and we only had him around wolves, right, then he's only going to want wolves. That's how nature is. But if you take that pup and you introduce him to other animals during a specific time period, usually during the fear imprint period and the socialization period, then they will grow up and having friends.
Right.
But nature says, no, we don't want that. So your mother and father grew up without anybody. They're going to keep you sequestered where you're not going to see any other animals other than the ones that we kill. So the Serengeti is one piece of land that no fences are there, just chemical warfare. They mark their territory for miles, right? But everybody's separated from each other because of that law. All the animals, that group is over there, they're over there, they're over there.
Right.
That's where they are. And the only time they cross that line, that chemical warfare line, is when it's time to eat. And then when they eat, they go back home.
Right. Well, if I'm taking this away correctly, they're better served if being introduced at a younger age, but at a later age, there's more challenges in introducing them in more social environments. Is that a fair assessment from what you're saying?
Because that's nature's fail-safe to keep the species intact.
That makes sense. So specific to you, how do you bring in a like, say, for example, a dog who's 5 or 6, who's exhibited these behaviors into the pack that you have, where there's a different lowest common denominator?
Very good question. Very rarely do I work with genetically dominant dogs. Genetically dominant dogs.
Can you define what that is?
Well, it's a dog that's born. Let's take a wolf.
Okay.
Let's take a wolf. A wolf, high content wolf, is genetically dominant. That's how they become a good wolf, right? So if we take that wolf and we introduce him as a pup to other dogs, then he will grow up and he will like those other dogs. And if they were older than him and they dominated him, then that's the way it's going to be. Okay? That's how nature wired it. Now, he can accept those dogs, but as he reaches another age, if he's still intact, he won't accept any other males, right? But he can accept dominant females. So you could bring a female to him, and he's okay because that's procreation, reproduction. He will accept the female, but he won't accept the male. But the ones that he grew up with, he will accept. But he's genetically dominant. That's why we can't put him with other males.
I see.
Challenge them. Now, we get a dog in that's 5, you said 5, 6 years old?
Yeah.
And he's aggressive to other dogs. Chances are he's not genetically dominant. He learned to be that way because of the lack of socialization.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can just take a quantum leap back in time to introduce him properly, to hijack his hormones, right? Then
teach an old dog new tricks.
Huh?
Teaching an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, then he can be with other dogs.
Yeah.
With the leader standing by as a mediator saying what it is they don't like. But a genetically dominant dog, he doesn't have control over that.
Right.
Because now the hormone is set. It's like it's locked in. Nature's doing its thing, but it accepted everything that came before that connection took place, he can still
Yeah.
exist.
Well, this has been awesome. I know that we're going up on time here. Is there anything you would like to share more about that I haven't asked? Because there's a wealth under here. I wanted to get more into people, and I just don't know how else. What if there's anything on your side that you think I may not have asked? I want to make sure I give you that opportunity.
Well, I want to say that I'm reading from a later page, and most people can't hear me at their stage. And they will say, well, who is this guy that's coming here saying these things, when everybody else is saying love and affection, toys, treats, tricks, and training and is the key. And what I have to say is, if training was the key, the shelter would be empty. Because all we have to do is teach them how to sit, stay, come, heel, and take them home and lay them on silk and memory foam beds, and he'd be fine. The problem with the animals in the shelter is hormone, pheromone, testosterone imbalance, but not because they need medication. It's because they need the lessons that nature would have taught them, that's still laying under the surface, waiting. It's like a relationship where you meet that one. You said, I've been waiting for you all this time, and you showed up. Now I can be the man I need to be, and you can be the woman that you need to be, right? That's what nature is always doing. It's laying in the cut. We call it laying in the cut, waiting for the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And then when they bring them in, usually when they bring them into me and they see that I tap into that, let me tell you something that really happens so many times. I got video of this happening. The person will come back to get their dog, and I bring the dog out. And let's say it's 2 dogs that they brought me. I bring the dog out. They go over to say hello to the owner, and they come over and lay underneath my desk.
Mm-hmm.
The person cries. I said, why are you crying? Well, they don't love me anymore. I said, okay, let's look at that. Do you think all day long I was in the back kissing and hugging them? I want people to understand that there is another way. But with all the information that we have out of here in the world and all the books that I have tapped into and looked at to see,
Sure.
is to keep, it's like the Matrix, it's to keep you dumbed down. Do you understand?
Sure.
Because it's a money thing. And I'm saying it doesn't have to be a money thing, because you can produce the right kind of toy. You can tell the truth and let the person make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The decision was made for me through the bite, but it wasn't until that person said that to me that now the recorder turned on and I was able to dig deep into this thing. I'm trying to turn on the recorder to every person that I meet.
Yeah.
Because if all the dogs at my place are dead dogs walking, that means everybody gave up on them. They wanted to destroy them, right? But they're there right now at this moment that we're talking. They're out. Some are in the rain, some are inside. They're where they want to be, but they were not supposed to be able to be with other dogs. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But they are. So how did that happen? There is some information that we still need to get out to people. But there's a lot of people that don't want it out because it's going to change things. But I say 2025, we got a lot of things going on, and things need to change, and the truth need to be told, right? And I'm just there every day. I'm there to say whatever it is that I think I need to say to people to wake them up, man, to get that dog out of the shelter.
Well, and I think there's a knee-jerk reaction because they think this is displacing the love that they had, or it's a new form of a relationship, but they're not mutually exclusive, in my opinion. I mean, you're still loving your dogs.
Oh, yeah.
You're still rubbing them. You're still letting them lick you.
Every day. I mean,
totally.
I'm just saying, look, it's like a relationship, right? It's how you make them feel.
Yeah.
It's how you make them feel. That's why psychiatrists or relation management people that deal with counseling. They're able to counsel people because they're able to see things that other people can't see. So they know how to guide you and say, hey, don't say you always do this, because that pisses him off when you say,
yeah,
they know how to guide you. I'm a guide for people with their dogs. I'm the voice of the dog for people. But
sure.
if you don't want to hear what the dog is saying, if you don't want to think that he's got something to say, this animal has something to tell you, but you don't want to hear it because you
Yes.
want to control them, then I don't know what to say. I just have to keep talking to you. I had one guy come to me and says, why didn't you do this in the beginning? And I said, do what? He said, why didn't you just talk to me like an idiot in the beginning? This is what he said to me. And I said, okay, I understand what you're saying, but you weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
He wasn't ready for that. It was actually his wife that told him. He says, why are you not doing the things that Brandon told you to do? You keep doing the things that you want to do, right?
Right. Pride.
And she called him on that. And then he came back to me and told me, why didn't you just talk to me like I was an idiot? I said, you're not an idiot, but I understand what you're saying. But you can hear me now.
Sure. Have you ever encountered a dog that you couldn't rehabilitate?
No. I'm really happy. I'm glad you said that. I'm really happy that you said that because, no, it's a universal language.
Yeah.
There's nature's creatures, and they're all trying to understand this. They just want to get it right. They have no choice. Let me say this. They have no choice. It's like the birds that fly south every year. They can't say we're not going. They got to go. Whereas the human being could say, oh, no, I love California. I'm not going to go back east. Only we have the free will. So when you give the animal what he needs, is that those steps that I take, they look up at you and they say, you got me. That's why I can take 30, 40, 50 dogs and put them all together, because they say, you understand us.
Well, and they'll fall in line when they see you as the alpha.
That's what it's about. So I'm telling everybody, we need to be that. Yeah. And not the negative tone of alpha. Not that. We need to be able to look at ourselves and look at the situation and tell the truth. I believe that we have been lying to our dogs, not maliciously lying to them.
Sure.
Just not telling them the truth because we don't know how to talk to them.
Right.
Right? And that's how they go down this path where they went left when they should have went right. So my job is to gather them up, the herd, it's like horses, and say, hey, this is the way we go. I'm the stallion when we're dealing with horses. I'm the alpha when we're dealing with dogs, right? And that's just my job. It's like if you go to the doctor and you've got this ailment and you could die, do you want a doctor that says he knows what to do or one that says he's not sure?
Right.
Right? I'm saying I know what's happening and I'm proving it every day, right? So I'm the guy you want to talk to, but I'm not going to talk to your ego because I'm not coming from an egoic point of view. I'm saying I love dogs. This happened to me. I was knocked down. I know about the bite. I've experienced everything that you've experienced.
Yep.
Everything. So you don't have to make that mistake. But what you do have to do is take what I've said, analyze it, break it down, and try to figure out why it's not true. And you won't be able to do that. If that were the case, then I would have people right now that would have shut it down and said, no, you're lying because this is the truth. No, and they can't do it because this is true. And you can stand on truth. It's firm. And when you do it, a light bulb goes off. People say, oh my gosh, it just clicked. I can't tell you how many times I hear that.
Yeah.
I see that click in dogs too.
Last question, second to last question. Has anybody said anything about your behavior being different before and after this journey commenced? Have you changed from your own perspective?
I think Yes, but it's only that I see it even clearer. Things are very, very clear. Because before I tried to separate, okay, this is dogs and this is me. This is what I do and this is me. But it's not like that. It's all me, right?
Right.
Because it's just one blood. We're all connected. You, me, we're all connected.
Sure.
You know? And once we realize that, then yeah, you change, man, because the egoic side of it is gone. What I can do, no, it's not about what I can do. It's what I can show you that you can do with your dog.
Have any insecurities of yours burned off from this or been exposed?
Say again?
Any insecurities of yours that have been exposed or burned off?
Insecurities. Yes, definitely. I used to talk differently to people. I didn't, let me see, how can I say this? I used to not tell the truth so profoundly.
Yeah.
You know, I held back. Like now I tell people, no toys, no this, and explain why. I tell them why, right? Before I would kind of like, well, if you want to, you
Sure.
know, but that was an insecurity on my part, you know, because I'm trying to be liked. I want you to get this. And so
Right.
I don't want to hit you so hard. And, you know, but I found that's not the way to be. Animals are in your face, right? They
tell the truth.
They tell the truth, man. And so when you're working with animals, especially aggression, you got to be as sober as the judge. And so it taught me how to be truthful and how to not be ashamed of what I know. A lot of people out here are really, really good at what they do, but they're ashamed that they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
Because of what people may think of them, you know? But
Totally.
I'm here to say that when you are that way, that fear that you have that people are going to feel that way about you, they want that. They want that themselves.
Yeah.
And you find that you have a friend that you probably never would have had them as a friend. You say, well, why do you want to be my friend? Because you are real. And that's what I want. We all want to be real.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I learned. I learned that.
I loved having you on. This was a terrific conversation. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, you know, I'd like to say this. We're here for a very short period of time. And life is very, very precious. And we see this with people who are involved with the fires and people who have lost everything. They say that life is a lesson or a blessing, right? So when we see that there are people who have lost everything and you think about your problems, you'll start to believe my problems are really nothing. I wouldn't want to have that problem, right? So we need to live life in the moment and to be respectful and loving of our friends and neighbors and people that come around us and understand that life is a fleeting moment. I woke up this morning, you woke up this morning, 4 or 5 people around us woke up this morning, right? Life is wonderful. But if we check the statistics, at least 250,000 people died this morning, didn't wake up. So it's precious.
Yeah.
Everything you do.
What a great way to end it. Thank you, Brandon. I will include in the show notes your website, brandonfouché.com. And you've got an amazing YouTube channel with some terrific tidbits and proof of what you're talking about here. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing.
Thank you very much, man. I enjoyed it, Marcus.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.